So yesterday we started off with the business process topic, and today we will continue on that. We created two different versions yesterday. One is a rule-based and one is the object-based. Now, before we go any further, let's first design our own business process. And from there on, we'll literally design that same thing in the Workday system. So this is how our business process actually looks like. It's completely blank because we have to populate it today. And based on what we populate, then we're gonna put that in the Workday system. All right. So on the left-hand side, you have a column for order. So we can normally put A, B, C, D, so on and so forth until the steps that we know. All right. So we have about 10 steps here. And parallel step inbox order, we'll do that at the end of the topic. If is where we have our entry conditions, right? Each step that we add in the business process has a type. Now, every business process that you will see in the system will by default have an initiation, like the one that we did yesterday, hire where true. This step will always be there and the type would be of initiation. You cannot remove it, you cannot add it. Though you can have another step with the same order, but not of the same type. If you're seeing one business process with two steps of initiation, then that business process is not going to run. It will give you an error. And then specify is depending upon if it's an action step, you will have what that action is defined here. If it's a task, you will have a task, what is defined. And then in the end, you have a group section, which tells us which user group, which security group is going to take an action for that step. Now, since we are working on an onboarding business process, all of these steps are to be defined by your employee, except for the initiation. And the visibility of the groups in initiation is not here. As you can see, step A, initiation, the group column is empty. You will see that for all business process because those groups are defined here. These are your initiating security groups. And these are coming from your business process security policy, which we have already worked on. Okay, but we'll still try to connect again on that topic. A quick activity, would you like to be part of your company's business process? So you have to think in a way that you have a new hire, that person is already selected. Now, on the very first day, onboarding process is seen to be a very seamless experience. So in that sense, and you also have to be very much thoughtful that you need this information from an employee on the very first day. Some of it you already might have when they were applying for the application, applying for the open positions, but some of it, like your banking information, your emergency contact, might not be there. So information which is very important for you as an employer to capture from the new hire, and also information about the worker should also be there during the onboarding process. Right? So think in that sense, and let's start by adding steps here in the specify column. So I'll start with one, which is emergency contact. What else can you think of? Benefit elections, what else? So within Workday, adding your banking information is technically written down as payment elections. There's a task called as manage payment elections. Not just a task, but a business process itself. Okay, so hardware, again, that would be something that would be done by the asset management team. And whether it's a remote setup or whether it's work in office, employee does not have to worry about it, nor is this information needed by the company. This information is already defined that this employee will get a Windows or a Mac machine, or what will be their seating location. So think of yourself as a new hire. We are trying to create an onboarding business process. Onboarding business process is triggered when the employee joins the office or on the very first day of their hire. You are a new hire. This is your first day in the company. Okay. You have to provide information to company. Some of the important information we are capturing through these tasks, like emergency contact, benefit, payment elections. Okay. Now, what other information does a company require? Now, think as a first thing before answering, think as a manager or think as a business side that what information is needed by the company from you. So I'll put that as just documents. We categorize everything in there. What else? And this documents will cover your policy acknowledgements, etc., etc. Dependents would be covered under your benefit elections. Probation period would already be defined before the hire, right? For W4, SSN. So SSN is a government ID. So there is a task which you all missed, a very important part, your government IDs. Though it will already be there, some of it will already be there when the candidate applies for it, but not everything is there. I-9 happens when employee logs into the system, enters the information, right? It's in the first week of hire. As part of the onboarding, I-9 is also a very important step. I have not seen companies putting restrictions to it. By default, it's like you have to do it as early as possible. So though there is a due date in the business process, but that's not technically designed the way it should be. There's still a lot of information that company needs. Vaccination record, yes, that could be one of that, but that was more prominent during the COVID time, not in these days, I think, because there was a specific task for business process Workday started with, called as COVID vaccination. And once that was done, it still exists, but I don't think not to 100%. You have to get a credit card, okay? That would come under your expense. If your role requires you to have a credit card, then there will be a provider that will provide you with a credit card. You won't have to apply for it probably. When you apply for the open positions, there are a set of questions which you have to answer, whether your age is this, you have the right work authorization, whether you're a veteran, whether you have a disability, and based on the disability, then there's a follow-up question. Do you need a affordable accommodation or not? Something like that. That information, yes, it's captured during the application time, but during the onboarding time as well, this information is again verified. Verified in the sense, those answers will flow from your recruiting functional area to your onboarding functional area. And if someone might want to change that answer, they still can. But these processes were designed as part of the onboarding, but now, not now, it's been a while, they have been used for recruiting also. But they are taken into account for every onboarding process also. If, for example, if someone is not 18 years or someone is not a US citizen, then the application is automatically dropped. That's absolutely okay. So it's not like we are entering all the information. Some of this information might already be there, which just flows from your one functional area to the other. Address, yes, definitely we can have a home address, like home contact information. We can add that. So in your government IDs, you will also have a section for passports, and that could not be a validation. That could just be you want this information in a worker profile. That's it. Because these validations would already be sorted out before during the hiring process. Something very important, personal information, your date of birth, your marital status. You don't put your date of birth or your age as part of the application. You don't put your marital status. Some does ask for it, but not everyone. So these are US specific tax elections you have to do. There are two forms of it, state withholding and federal withholding elections. And every employee in the US have to enter that information. All right, so I think that would suffice. But now let's think of it from an employee's perspective. If on the very first day we give them a list of 11 items, 11 inbox items, and please mind it, all of them goes in their inbox. Do you think that would give them a good user experience? Definitely not. Now, in order to manage that properly, what we do is we shuffle the order based on the critical information that the company needs. and other information like benefits. Even if the employer does it in the second week of file, that's okay. State withholding elections, even if they do it in the third week, that's absolutely okay. But some information which is very critical, like your emergency contact, your payment election, which is your banking information, your I-9 must be done in the first 3 days. So these kind of information should be on the top of the list. So when the employee logs in on their first day, they should see this information. Okay, so what we do is, we'll start with emergency contact. I'm just gonna reshuffle them between elections, and or probably we will have their government IDs like Social Security, and we put them in one step only, which will be step B. So what I'll do is, so what I just did is I shuffled the order and put them all under one step. So what will happen is, once the onboarding is initiated soon after the hire process finishes, it triggers off the onboarding process. And then step B will be triggered. Now, once step B is triggered, this means all these 4 items a new hire will see in their inbox. Only these 4 items as of now. So their focus will be to finish these 4 items at the earliest. Once they finish this, then only the next steps will start to run. So for that, let's see what are the next important information. We definitely need their personal information. So let me put that here. We need their home contact information, because if it's a remote location, you need to send the hardware, your laptops, and the welcome kit kind of things. And we definitely need to have their acknowledgement on policies, any kind of policies, whether it's employee handbook or whether it's related to the hardware that is being sent, or the code of conduct policies must be acknowledged. So let's put that there. And I'll put them under step C. I'm just color coding it so that it's clearly visible, differentiate it properly. And then let's say we start with their benefit elections, veteran status, other important stuff. Let's put benefit elections in the end, because that is a lengthy process. Because these information would already be there, most of it. So it's just a verification, so I put them separately. Now, the way everything works in an order in every business process. So defining an order is very critical when you are solutioning a business process. So in this case, once step B is finished, then only step C task will trigger. So let's say employee finishes the I-9, that is the last in the list, and this is how this employee will look. This is how the task will look in the employee's profile in their inbox. The next step of task, once that finishes, these 3 will get triggered. So on like that, once step C are finished, then step D, and likewise step E. So what we have done is we have divided these tasks in a way that it does not overwhelm on the very first day of the new hire. Plus, you get to have the critical information on the very first day. Now, some of it might not be applicable to everyone across the globe. Now, let's say we are only using one business process, which is our default definition. And within that, we want to cater all the other regions that we have. Form I-9 is only specific to US. Okay. And some of these tasks like I-9 form, state withholding elections, veteran status, Workday already have defined entry conditions. Once we add that step, it automatically puts an entry condition. We don't have any control on it. We'll see that once we'll start the hands-on of it. But let's first discuss the type of it. Now, the most common type I'll write down the types here. Okay, the most common type that is used in every business process is action. Now, this action signifies another business process in most cases. For example, emergency contact is a business process. Manage payment elections is a business process. Edit government IDs is a business process. So I filtered some of the ones that we are using, like I-9s, change benefits, emergency contact, I-9 again, edit government IDs, other IDs, home contact, payment elections, personal information. So all these are already defined business processes which we are using here. So Workday allows us to use other business process in an existing business process. And onboarding is one such big example. I think it's one of the only example that uses most of the other business processes. Onboarding hardly has anything of its own. It's bringing in other business processes in its own process. And there is a list of actions. Those actions are nothing but your other business processes that onboarding is allowed to do. And those lists can be seen here. And not just for this, every other business process is exactly the same way, but they have their own steps. Just in case of onboarding, it uses mature 99% of other business processes. That's why we use onboarding as a demo example, because it literally covers every area of business process. So there's something called as allowed actions by role. This is where you will see all these other business processes listed, like the ones that we have. Emergency contact. There you go. You have another one for benefits. Change benefit elections. They might be named differently, but they are initiating the same thing. Payment elections. I'll just filter a few. So you can see benefit elections, emergency contact, managed payment elections. Right. So all these we are using in our business process because the system allows us. So if there is a step which you're not able to add in your process, the first thing you have to do is check in this list, allowed actions by role. Okay. And these actions are mostly your business processes. So that means your emergency contact becomes a sub-process to your onboarding business process. Anything not working with that step, you have to check the security for emergency contact, not for your onboarding business process. So likewise, you have some steps called as action steps. The other most commonly used are your tasks. Now, tasks are nothing but a collection of action steps. Now, only in business process of onboarding, we have these kind of things as well. Personal information, home contact information are considered as tasks. Now, anything related to very personal information, let's add another one here, which I just recalled, is called as legal name change. Sometime during, obviously you have a legal name during the time of application, but Workday gives you the opportunity, or in your onboarding experience, you have an opportunity to change it. And this is mostly used in Asian countries where their names, basically their given names are different to what they use as of the Asian and African countries, or employees who are based out of these countries. They have very complex names and they simplify it. Like I also had some African friends. So though their given names, their family names were a lot big, they used to use simple names. But at the time of onboarding, they must add their legal name. They can apply through their, the pseudonames, we call it. But definitely at the time of onboarding, you have to enter your legal names. Okay. So that is also added as part of your task. not as a separate action step. So task is nothing but a collection of action, but only in onboarding and maybe a couple more business process, it works like this. Rest, all the other business process, they are action steps only. Okay. Then comes review document and complete question. This is where nothing but your document acknowledgements will be there. Or upload. Like for I-9, an employee has to upload identification documents, which can be used like their driving license or their SSN, which can be used against their I-9 forms. Similar to that, in India, you have to add in your PAN and Aadhaar. So that is what this is. Then another type is complete questionnaire, which is nothing but a set of questions put in one questionnaire, put in one form, and sent out to you. And you have to answer those questions. So mostly used in reference letters. Then there's something called as to do. It's just for information. No action is needed. So a to do step is basically you have to update your banking information. You're already doing that, which is here. But in case you want to split it in two different accounts, we can configure a to do step which you will receive in your inbox, which will ask you to take an action outside the system, maybe in the system or mostly outside the system. Mostly used in benefits and in payroll related business processes. Then something called as checklist, which is nothing but a collection of to-dos. So the more variety of business process you work with, all these other types you'll be able to explore. Then one important type is your service type. Now these are your Workday own steps. For example, create Workday account or disable account. So these are applied on your hire and terminations. Like for hire process, we will have something called as create Workday account. So Workday automatically creates an account. We don't own it. So for example, if I give you, let me go here. Say if I open termination. So these service steps are defined by this particular tab, which is called allowed services. You can see here, terminate user account, deactivate worker payment elections. So Workday tells us you can use these steps in these defined business processes, and I'll take care of it. So let's say if someone, do we have anyone? Yeah, you can see here step B is of type service. It's called remove user-based security group. So if you have any admin security access, that will automatically be removed once you're terminated. Right? It says true Workday owned, this is a Workday owned condition. We didn't add it, it automatically comes up. And you would see the group section is empty. Why? Because these are Workday owned and we don't have to worry about it. Do we have anything? All right. And then one last, I would say is, there are more obviously, is an approval step. An approval step is not an action step. What I mean by that is, as a manager, you will get an approval step. But as an HR person, you will get an action step. What I mean by that is, in approval, you don't have the ability to change information. But in a review step is usually comes under the action category. You have the ability to change the information. For example, if an employee has initiated a legal name change process, it goes to an HR person for approval. Now, that approval means the HR person cannot change any information about what the employee has added. But if it's a review step is of type action, that means that HR partner has the ability to change it. Right? Another example is you have applied for a time off, it goes to your manager for approval. The only thing your manager can do is approve it, deny it, or send it back with comments that these dates are not feasible. They cannot change the dates themselves. So that would be a true approval step. Okay. So these are some of the most commonly used step types, and we won't be able to see all of them in this. We'll be seeing actions, tasks, review documents. And there are other types as well. You can trigger an integration, you can kick off an integration, you can run a report from a business process. So there's a whole lot of things you can literally do. But designing the business process is more important. Understanding what that process is doing is more important than anything else. Okay. Now, let's just jump into the tenant and add these steps in the same order as we have defined. And I'll use the existing business process that we created, which was not proxy in. So I'll directly go in the edit mode without waiting for it to open. Go to edit definition. And you cannot edit a business process definition backdated. So if I try to do it as of yesterday, I'll get an alert. Alerts usually are soft errors. You can bypass them. But this alert you cannot. If I click OK, that will turn out to be an error. If the system allows, then that's not correct. Okay. So this is how we add steps. So we'll first add 4 steps for our step B. We'll add that order here. Then we select the time. We'll come to this in the end. Parallel step in box order. All right. So all these steps are of type action, because once you select action, you get a list of items, and these list is exactly 22 items coming from here. Your allowed actions by they have 56 in. So we'll select the ones that we need, like emergency contact information. And we'll select another one, which is your payment elections. We don't have this. Okay, we'll have to select something outside that. Something is not right for this because oh, okay, that's right. So what we are doing is we are working on a higher process instead of an onboarding. That is. So what I need to do is actually create a copy of this. Go to the business process, copy your link. So we have an onboarding version now. So I'll add my steps again. What else do we have? Government IDs and I-9 form. So unless you don't select the type, your specified column will not work. And all these has to be done by the group, employee, and self. Now, pre-employer self is if the employer, your company, gives you access to the system a week earlier before your hire or whatever earlier time they can, so that you can finish all your onboarding tasks before your first day of hire. So this is what pre-hire is. So it's completely optional. If you want to add it, you can. Sorry about that. And then you add another clip here, which is name employee as self. Yes, the group column is the security group, Usha. And let's save it and see how it looks like. So now your onboarding process has 4 steps. And if you notice something, as we only added this and the group, this came in by itself because these are Workday owned entry conditions. So only if this condition is true, then only this step will trigger. And the condition says employee has a primary job located in the USA, isn't a Form I-9 rehire, or has no upcoming complete Form I-9 steps. It's saying that only if the employee is hired in the US and is not a rehire or has any pending I-9 forms in progress, only those employees will be eligible to complete their Form I-9s. Likewise, we can have our own entry conditions just by creating a rule, the way we created something in the rule base. So we can use those conditions here as well. We'll come to that a little later. So likewise, again, you can go in the edit mode, add more steps, and build your own business process. Take a screenshot of this, jumble the steps if you want to, and definitely create your own version of onboarding. You need the type onboarding in this. You cannot do the same thing that I was doing on hire. That's incorrect. You won't find that steps. So, and build the same process and explore what kind of errors, what difficulties you face. So right now we have only added step B. We can again shuffle the order within these steps as well, which we'll do in tomorrow's session. Right now, first, we'll just add all the other steps here so that we finish this. This is process, again, edit definition. Okay. Then we add step C. So for that, I think I need 3 rows or 4. C, 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 C. Personal information. Now, if you're completely new to business process, what you need to do is, if you don't know if there is an action step for that in the onboarding business process, search for that here. There is no personal information step. This means that you have to select task, right? Wherever something you are trying to add, which is a business process in itself, but it is not coming when you select type action. That means it is coming as task. Let's check the other home contact information. Nope. Let's look at the legal name change. That's also not there. Last is document. So document is not related to this. So I'll add 3 steps for tasks. And once I select task, my specified column gets blanked out. And the review document, that also goes out. So what we do is we first add the groups here. Employee self, the employee also. Now, once I save it, I'll get errors because tasks and review documents need additional work. Okay, so step B is all set. Now we are at step C. So we'll come to the task in a minute. Let's go through the review document. So whenever you do a review document, you have to configure the document. And it only comes once you save the setup. In the edit mode, you won't see this. Outside this, you will have it. And you will have an error also related to this, which is you have not configured a business process step, and you can see the step C review documents. So let's tackle that first. So you click here, click OK, and you have to basically attach a document, add in the date as effective date. So the day employee will receive this task, the task will be effective that date. And attach a document. You can create a document or you can use an existing one. Let's say select from the active documents, bring your dog to work hours, something like this. You can add in instructions. And if you want an acknowledgement, so there are three options as a signature. One is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is I acknowledge the instructions. Now this means you will have a checkbox. Okay, if you check that, that will be considered as a signature. Next is e-signature. Now e-signature can be only done with two vendors. Workday only operates with two vendors. One is Adobe eSign and the other one is DocuSign. These are the only two vendors that are integrated with Workday that you can use. But obviously there's a license fee which you have to pay. So if you're using any of the electronic signature, you can use this. If you just want them to read the application, read the policy or read the document and you don't want any signature, you can select this option. Okay. And you can add multiple documents just by clicking on the add button. Likewise, you can add multiple documents in one step only. So now